Thank you very much for inviting me along. My name's Kath Griffiths, and at the moment I'm 60 years of age. This is my story about CLL and how I eventually came to be having treatment, and special thanks to NHS and everybody else. It's helped along the journey. I was a serving member in the Royal Air Force for 29 years, and last year I went private with them out with the NHS for an operation on my coccyx tailbone, which had been problematic since 1983. Following my operation, I was pain free for 4 months. And I went along to just a regular blood test because of my parents who had problems with their heart. So I was just being each year checked. However, I was called back for a second blood test, and at that time wasn't told what they were testing me for. However, much to my dismay, within 2 weeks, my doctor, even though we were in COVID, contacted me via the phone to say that I had a form of leukemia, which was classed as CLL. Obviously a big surprise to me. I had a few weekends to have a think about it, to find out the information I could possibly have. And unbeknown to me, whilst I was waiting to see the consultant, I had started having problems with my bowel. Quite luckily, my new consultant, Dr. Preston at Aberdeen Royal Infirmary, requested me to see another consultant reference my bowel. And again, this was all over Zoom meetings. However, the symptoms I displayed, he was very anxious to get me in. So towards the end of the year, I had a colonoscopy with 18 biopsies taken. Following that, I had 2 sigmoid flexes, which were less invasive than the colonoscopies, which determined it was a polyp, and it was on a very narrow lining of the bowel, and on a CT you wouldn't see it. However, the second sigmoid, they tattooed the area, and it was agreed that this was a priority over the CLL. The CLL at that time, I was only getting routine blood tests. However, what happened meanwhile, while I was waiting for the operation on the bowel, I had a lump which appeared on my chest outwardly, a hugely alien type lump, which was quite bizarre, and obviously my lymph nodes had been raised. Again, another telephone call out of the blue while I was working to say the tumour in the bowel, I had a lump in my breast, and my lymph nodes were rather enlarged. So all in all, 3 things over the telephone, which was interesting. Very much so. I think, having been in the military, I processed it a lot easier than I would think most people would. However, moving on, it was determined that I would go down to the Golden Jubilee down in Glasgow to have the tumour removed, and I elected to go for a robotic trial, the Mystery trial, which was robotic, and it was less invasive than going the old-fashioned way. Plus, my CLL consultant had wanted me to start RCHAP treatment because the lump in the breast was diagnosed as a rare form of leukemia, which is Richter's transmission. So we needed to start work on that as well. So I had the operation on the bowel on the Thursday, and I was released from the Golden Jubilee on the Sunday, and I commenced treatment 2 to 3 weeks straight after chemo. And the chemo was every 3 weeks. I didn't lose my hair until, I lost my hair after the first chemo treatment. And I had a reaction in the first treatment with tightness of the chest, going through to the shoulder blades, down to the spine. However, we persevered. As we were getting into the treatment, by the 3rd and 4th chemo, second day after, I'm completely filled in my cancer treatment book, and I would say that to all patients. I think this gives you a true reflection on how you're feeling and your symptoms, and you're able to understand a trend analysis. That's the way I look at it. I was having a reaction to the treatment, and in the words of my consultant, the treatment was working, the RCHAP was working very well. However, my body was not working with the treatment very well. So hence the reason 3 weeks ago was my 5th treatment, and I ended up in the oncology ward for 5 days to be monitored the pain. Meanwhile, I had more chest x-rays. There wasn't any chest infections. It was solely the pain in the chest going through, radiating through to the back, this breathlessness. I'm now on liquid morphine and MST. Some days are better than others, but my consultant decided that we wouldn't go into the 6th chemo. I'm booked in to go in the end of October now for methotrexate treatment, which could be a 4 to 7 day treatment ×2, under the guidance of the ward. So that's where we're at the minute. So how am I feeling during this journey? Most of the time very positive. Other times I have my moments. I've raised money for both CLL. I did a zip wire in Europe's largest zip wire down in Wales, because my husband's from Wales. I've raised money for Macmillan, £2,500, doing weird, wonderful dance challenges, which I've got into a row with my consultant about, but hey-ho. It's about listening to your body. It's about listening to how you feel. That's took a long time for me. I'm a very controlling person, very independent. That has took a lot. It's took a lot to ask for help. I've just recently moved into a new house, built house, bungalow in John Saden. So I've got new neighbours, brand new neighbours who know nothing about me, except the very fact that I've got cancer. They've been great. They've looked after me, looked after the dog. And how bizarre that my next door neighbour, next bungalow, was diagnosed with CLL the same month as me. He doesn't have Richter's, he's got some form of CLL, and he'll actually start treatment in 4 months' time. So CLL is very prominent. I really would like more GPs to be fully aware of what CLL is all about. And that's my story. And if anybody's got any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer. Thank you very much. That's me leaving. Thank you, leaving hospital. See you later.